Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll just let people in as they join. Welcome to Family First Wednesday. My name is Beth Ayers. I am the Peer Support Training Coordinator at Montana's Peer Network. Montana's Peer Network is a 501c3 peer-run re recovery organization. They have been, we've been leading the recovery movement in Montana since 2011, and we began serving families and working with family peer support in 2022. We are currently splitting off the family division. We are in the process of creating a family-run organization, so we will have more information as we get that further along. Today, we have the executive director for NAMI Montana, Matt Kuntz. He's been executive director since 2008. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Their programs support both those with mental illnesses and also their friends and families. The Montana chapter works to improve the lives of Montanans with mental health conditions and their families through support, education, and advocacy. NAMI is the nation's largest grassroots organization for people with mental illnesses and their families. NAMI Montana has over 400 members, and they have 9 affiliates located across Montana. So with that, I will turn it over to our presenter, Matt Kuntz.
Thank, thank you so much, Beth. And thanks everybody for joining us today. I see some familiar faces and some new folks. This is going to be a little bit probably less formal than usual. If you catch me at the end of the legislation, you will get less, or at the end of the legislature, you will get less formal. It's been a long 4 months. So I thought that I would start out with kind of my personal journey to NAMI, which may rhyme a little bit with some of your journeys to family peer support, and then do a little bit of history of NAMI for anybody interested in the family peer support movement. It's kind of cool. So for me, I was born and raised in Helena. Went to West Point and the Army. I got injured in Ranger School, and uh, eventually came back and went to law school. And while I was in law school in Oregon, my stepbrother Chris was deployed to Iraq with the Montana National Guard, and it was a really hard tour for them. They were, on what they call the highway of death during, 2005. Just a brutal, brutal time of the war, brutal, brutal place. And he went from being, somebody that was a checker at Target to being having to run the 50 cal machine gun on top of a Humvee while being shot at and hit by IEDs. And when he got home, it was a little bit before I got home, and or before I got back to Montana and started practicing law. Uh, and he was doing great at first. It was really seemed to be clicking for him. But then when I got back into town, we didn't end up spending as much time together as I thought. I was taking the bar, and even when I came back after that, we just weren't getting the time together that I expected. And our parents weren't married anymore. It's about a 7-year age gap. So I didn't think it was that surprising. Not the first person that hasn't wanted to hang out with me won't be the last. Like you just do that stuff. You have family members come and go because of politics. I mean, because of whatever. eating eating place preferences, churches. There's a million reasons you can fight with your family members that don't involve mental health. And that was what I jumped to. Was I just thought, we just drifted apart, and that's how it goes. And but then that winter, he called me and said that he was in trouble with the National Guard, and they were threatening to give him a lesson on honorable discharge and maybe even put him in jail. And it was really scary for him. What I didn't know was that he was also isolating from everybody else, and he was having trouble even putting his uniform on because of the flashbacks, much less going back to the National Guard for drill every weekend. It was just too much for him. So, he didn't handle it in the most logical way. And the guard, instead of being worried about him and being worried about like a group of people that were there, just threatened him. And so he called me, and I knew that I was in over my head. I knew I was called because I was the free family legal person. So, but I went to a retired general, and he got somebody in the VA to agree to see Chris, even though he wasn't really a veteran. He was still in the National Guard. So we did all this hassle to set up a semi-legal appointment, and then he he didn't show up, and I didn't know what to think about that. Like all of us have been there. Your family member doesn't embrace care like you want them to, like they logically should, in your head. And I just didn't know what to think about it. So I reached out to him and then went to Target where he was working, but couldn't find him. I didn't know, just that he kept tuning out and tuning out. And um, so one Sunday, I was driving back into Helena from Missoula, and called him on my way into town to see if we could get a burrito. And the phone went to the answering machine. That if you remember those Verizon answering machines with the classical music, hated them then. It's still in my head now. And went back to his voicemail, and I left another message telling him that I was there when he needed me. And so we lost him about three. Well, I made a very conscious decision at that point that I I would be there when he was ready for me. You have to think I was West Point, I was lawyer, I dotted my I's and crossed my T's. That was how I did things. And it didn't work. I was trying, I had the expectation of rationality for someone whose brain wasn't processing information in a rational way. It just wasn't fair for me. It wasn't fair for him. And we ended up losing him about three weeks later when the National Guard sent their discharge paperwork, and it was heartbreaking. Um, we were all just crushed. Like I'm sure a few of you have probably been through that situation, and it was just hard. And uh, I waited about a week before, trying to figure out what to do. And as a family, we got together and we thought, we really wanted there to be better screening. So, and I started advocating at that. Well, first I told the governor's office that we wanted better face-to-face screening for veterans' mental health after they got back from deployment. and they patted us on the head and said, thank you for your insights. Please make sure that there's pictures of us at the funeral. Basically, so I got pretty mad. We all got pretty mad and started advocating that week. And it turned into a pretty big thing. And then about a year later, it was it was clear, like the Montana Guard had agreed to our demands, and I mean it was a big thing. And then it's also clear that I was becoming a very bad attorney. That I was spending a lot of time on this, and I had people all around the state calling me, asking for help for their loved one or themselves. And I was just a junior attorney with no staff, and there wasn't much I could do. So at the time, NAMI Montana, who'd been in existence since 1987, was looking to hire their first full-time employee, or actually was part-time executive director, and I took the job. It was half my pay. I mean, it was nothing on top of nothing on top of nothing, but just kind of took the jump and joined in June of 2008. And it was me, and there was one part-time peer, and we would go back and forth answering the phones, and that was how things started with me. Since then, we've done a ton of legislation, done all of these different things at the state level, the federal level, worked with individuals forever and ever. I can't answer the phones anymore after suicide in 2018. It was just too bad. So I don't do a ton of one-on-one work anymore, unless it's the worst calls. I still field those because they often involve some mix of law and other things, like, you know, somebody who's like a mom whose son killed the dad, and he has schizophrenia, and they're, like, those are the ones that I answer now. It's not the more basic ones. So yeah, it's been a pretty amazing journey, but to go back with NAMI, I feel like I got really lucky to land with NAMI. Just out of all the mental health organizations, I feel like I got really fortunate to land at that one because NAMI came out of schizophrenia, and and coming out of schizophrenia for me, it feels like a superpower because there was no I guess a little bit more about the origin story to have it make more sense is it was started by a group of moms in Wisconsin in the 70s. And at that time, they had this thing called schizophrenic parenting. And it was the belief that mothers cause schizophrenia through a certain type of parenting. And the way that they believed it was you would tell your child one thing and then actually reward them for a different thing. Um, that that caused this horrible, debilitating condition. That was the state of the science in the 70s was let's blame the moms. Clearly the dads aren't involved to do anything. So we're busy watching football. So we didn't mess anything up. So that was the state of the science. And our moms banded together and they fought. And one of the things that they did was they realized that looking at their families were more affected by schizophrenia than other families. And they thought about the genetics and some of the other factors that could be there. And that was really powerful, like ahead of the science. And really cool. And they also fought for system change, and then and believed that families had value. You know, that your time, especially with a trained family member, helps. And so NAMI programs have been being offered in Montana to families since like 1987. And, you know, it started out in Kalispell. We still have a great uh, affiliate there. At that time, Miles City was the next one, and then kind of branched in. Dee and Paul Hawley have been amazing in Billings with, you know, they've just been anchors with Carla Cobb and a lot of other folks to make sure that like families support for family members of mental health conditions has an anchor in Billings over all those years. Uh, Gary and Sandra Mahelish in Helena, when they joined, their son Kurt developed schizophrenia, uh, probably like 88, and that led them to NAMI. I knew them because um, they were all involved with this with the Helena swim team. So I joke that Sandra has been bossing me around since I was 5, and it's really not that funny because it's true. And so like we it really does have a family dynamic that way. And it's been cool. It's been a journey. I feel like we we had the we had the push with peer support first, and I was involved with the development of licensing, then it was certification, then it was licensing, and then getting it to be supported by Medicaid. And it was pretty cool because we had our programs before that. We had volunteer programs run by volunteers, but the argument that these programs had value and that, you know, these peers and these family members and family peers, that what we were doing for each other had importance. It's been really cool to see it stick. Like for me, I think one of the most tangible things was I took the family to family class in, gosh, fall of 2008. And I didn't want to take the family to family class, but Sandra Mahalish made me. And and what I learned in that class helped me grieve for my stepbrother. It helped me forgive myself because of what happened. Um, it helped me support other family members. I realized that, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning, if your family member is in crisis, schizophrenia looks an awful lot like PTSD, and how and how our universe responds to them looks pretty similar. And I think one of the most dramatic changes for our family was I learned the tools to be able to help my ex-wife get emergency care when she needed it. And we're not together, but you know, my daughters have their biological mom alive because I took that class. So I'm really grateful to all the teachers. The state has su supported that for years. When Jamie Hansen got on board, she she got excited about having us pay our peers and having us pay our family members, and it was really scary. It's a huge change for us because we've always been volunteer. Some even argued that our models were based on volunteer and they wouldn't transition. But it is true that we weren't getting all like the people that were able to volunteer were the ones that could afford to. You know, the people that have taught the most classes in the state of Montana are Paul and Dee Holly and Gary and Sandra Mahelish. Both of one of them is the doctor and a doctor pharmacist. The other one is a very successful dentist with major real estate holdings. That's who had the time to volunteer for our classes. It wasn't that other people didn't want to, it was just that they had other things that they had to do for their families. So it was really cool that Jamie and the whole behavioral health division did. But it was Jamie challenging us, and it was scary and it was miserable because we weren't being paid for it. We were supposed to start paying people before we got paid for for it, and that was hard. Got me in a lot of trouble with my board and my boss. But it has been a good journey, and we have adjusted our state contract to be able to do that now. And roughly what we pay is set $75 per support group facilitator session. Each of our family support groups has two people that work them. They've been trained over the course of about 4 days, so not as much as your as the full certification, but they really know that program in depth. And so I do think we are in need of more people to lead our family support group. If somebody wants to broaden their practice to include that, it's not going to dramatically change your financial life, but it's a chance to make with two support groups a month, which is the max that we allow. It's a chance to make another $150 a month while making a difference for families. And I think figuring out how to help families, what this national organization has figured out over the course of the last 40 years. Um, so yeah, we would love to have people that are interested. We have in-person support groups at all of our affiliates, and then we have online support groups as well. We do a very specific split between you have to identify as a family member or someone with personal mental health condition. And that's tricky. Like for me, I live with depression and I am also a family member, which I think lots of us are in that boat. But we tell people, if you want to do a family class, you have to come to it from a family member's perspective, because we're going to have situations where you have to talk about calling the county attorney to get somebody's loved one into treatment against their will. And that's real. We've prevented a mass shooting in the state of Montana with our NAMI families by talking them through situations like that. We've had murders in our family to family, where one family member is killed during the course. I mean, it's real intense stuff, and but it doesn't work if a person is identifying as a peer while they're trying to give advice on that. So that's roughly where we are, how we got to it. Our next training is on May 17th and 18th. It, if anybody would like to pick up a NAMI family support group gig on the side, we'd love to have you. And we're really grateful to Brent and for all the state's work to support our programs. We have a wonderful conference that's been bringing family advocates from around the country for years, and it'll be in Helena this year, like October 24th. But don't write that date down. There's 3 days that all escape me right now. So, are there any questions about NAMI or our programs?
Yeah, Matt, could you explain the family to family class and the family support group a little bit more for those that aren't familiar?
Yeah, so our support groups are very structured, and they are built in. We run them in a very structured environment. It has the evidence base. That's what's allowed us to kind of maintain the national funding for them for years. The family to family class is different. It's a eight-week course, and you go there, and it's like 2.5 hours. It takes forever each night. I mean, it is an investment, and you go there, and what I think it hits you. Everybody gets hit by some of the realizations at different times, but they did give you a week of like you absorb that 2.5 hour thing, and then you process it for a week, and then you come back. And I'm the first one to say, like, I thought the first 4 weeks were the stupidest weeks of my life. Like I'm getting nothing out of this. I'm getting, this is the biggest waste of my time. And then somewhere in class 5, I can remember where I was sitting when it clicked for me. Chris's brain was not processing information right. Just like if had a heart attack or whatever, like that super complex part of his body was not doing what he wanted it to do, was not doing what I wanted to do. And it wasn't our fault, and even now, I mean, there's like treatment resistant mental health conditions, and your loved one can do everything in their power and not get better. I mean, thankfully, it's not a huge percentage. Thankfully, we're adding in access to care all the time, but it's real. Like you could be the best loved one in the world, and they can do everything, and it still doesn't work sometimes. So that family to family course was really valuable for me. Went into kind of the biology of mental health conditions, and again, I think we got lucky by coming out of schizophrenia. I would like to say it was more than just luck, but sometimes you just get lucky. Um, and Because it was always a brain-based conditions. So as neuroscience caught up and caught up to psychology and mental health, we didn't have to switch everything. Like we just had to be like, oh, so depression has some things in common with the biology of schizophrenia. Bipolar disorder has something, like it wasn't beginning our biology course. And I think the same thing that like we had to learn as an organization how to deal with pharmaceutical companies. That was a really big challenge when I first came to NAMI was, the pharmaceutical companies want access to care, and our families want access to care. And you got to be really careful not to mess that up. And especially back then, when nobody was funding stuff like this. Like my office rent was $150 a month, and we had a phone and a fax machine. That was it. And it was a shady $150 a month. So for when people would take money, that was never a problem with NAMI Montana. Hardly anybody would give us money. Um, but um, but I think that we got really fortunate to be able to learn that over the years, and there was some of that. So one of the things that we also do is we kind of act with our advocacy. We act as kind of air traffic controllers for the mental health treatment system. Like when we're working with our families, when we're getting calls from around the state, we see things that are necessary. So, like, we had a bunch of moms that were calling. They were super angry about their sons being held in Montana State Prison in solitary confinement. And the sons had schizophrenia, and they were not being treated for schizophrenia. The psychiatrist that the prison hired, who replaced the one that we gave them that was good, um, was horrible. And that led us to advocate for a new for forensic facility. And that forensic facility was established at Galen. We just realized that we were in the same situation again, except for it was in the jails across Montana. So we advocated for a new for forensic facility. We just got done advocating for a full change in Montana's mental health system or behavioral health system financing model. It took us 7 years, but we were there serving families throughout the collapse in 2017. And we went from having places to send people to not. And it was horrible. Like, what do you tell those families? And I think that's an important lesson is like, you don't pretend like it's a better situation than it is because it doesn't help them. So yeah, that's another kind of function that we do through our advocacy. Has anybody taken the family class? It's awesome.
I have.
Oh,
So
did you?
when our oldest was in residential treatment, my husband and I took it. And yeah, the I think understanding about mental illness and brain disorders was super helpful. And then yeah, just being there with group of people that are also experiencing loved ones mental illness helped a lot. In fact, I met a gal at my church in class. We didn't know we went to church together, and we ended up doing a mental health friends network at our church because we wanted to, yeah, kind of get that conversation started with our church and our congregants. So yeah, no, it was yeah, it was really amazing and yeah, I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Brent has brought up multiple times is I think NAMI does a good job of planting seeds. We are not where everybody comes up, and we don't have to be, I mean, like there's a million different ways to engage in this system, but I do think I'm really proud of a lot of the folks. Like I even think Jim Haney, started out with NAMI peer to peer, like I mean it is cool and we just love let all the flowers bloom.
Mhm. Yeah. Where are your different affiliates across Montana?
I'm going to mess this up, so please somebody yell at me. All right, so let me try to do it alphabetical. We have Bozeman, or I'm sorry, Billings, Bozeman, Butte, which we call Southwest Montana, so kind of like that Butte, An Anaconda area, Flathead, um, Helena, Havre, Missoula. We've been in Ravalli County before. We're trying to set root there. Again, we do have a couple of smaller support groups in Northwest Montana that have kind of grown off of the Kalispell affiliate. Our Kalispell affiliate is just rocking support groups right now. But it is something like you just need two people that want to do a class together. Like you don't have to have an official affiliate, like in Troy or wherever. They don't have an affiliate, but they just need to have two people that are there and want to do the class together.
Joby, do you have a question?
I do, thank you. I have a lot of questions. I'll keep them to two. You mentioned that you have a couple hundred members. So what does it mean to be a member of NAMI Montana? And then the other question, the family to family course, I can only imagine how hard it is when somebody is in the middle of it, in the middle of, maybe. Yeah, when would be the best time, do you say, to as a family member to take that 8-week course? Maybe once things have settled down, or just get into it, just go.
Yeah, so that is an amazing question. Let me start with that. The membership is so much more boring compared to that. So what we do is we have people call us. And first, just call our line when, if you don't know what to do. I mean, call 988 first, of course. But eventually you've got something too bizarre for 988. It's not just go to crisis. It is, how do I deal with this? And we usually will have them call us. We tell our families take it like 6 hours at a time. Like you break your family care into 6 hours at a time. Do not think past that until you're ready to go to 12 hours at a time, and then 18 hours. And eventually they will end up talking to us and we'll say, call back in 2 days. So we'll give them a pretty intense whatever, not telling them what to do, but walking them through, this is the array of options typically that people can do in your spot. They will go explore them and we'll say, call back in 2 days. And then hopefully then we get to a week and then 2 weeks and then it's a month and all the way through that, we're also telling them to do the support group. I do think the support group works. Like we have people just crying their eyes out at that support group. Like 3/4 of the group will ball in the family to family, but you are engaging in information. And yeah, we like until you're like at that month out point, it's just not the perfect time to do it. So we try to do more one-on-one and then support groups twice a month until their things are sorted out well enough to take 2.5 hours at a time of engaging in that. And then for the membership, we don't focus very much on whether you're a member or not. Like we will never ask, like the only thing that you have to have a membership for is to administer the classes, is we have huge email lists, we have huge contacts lists, but if you want to administer a NAMI class or a NAMI support group or be on a NAMI board, I mean, kind of take leadership type thing in our organization, we require people to become members, but there's the $40 annual one, but there's also like $5 per year. And um, it just shows a level of investment in the organization.
Other, anybody else have any other questions?
Has anybody ever been to a NAMI conference? Brent,
Brent
here we
has.
go.
Went to a virtual conference a couple
Oh,
of
did
years
you?
ago. Yeah, attended. So thank you for
In-person
offering.
ones are awesome. And
I
it's a great cost-effective way to get a ton of continuing education credits.
I went to with the person that I met in class that we did the thing together with church. She and I went to the national conference in 2019 in Seattle, which I went to a workshop that Orange County was putting on about having I think they were adult peers working in the ER.
Mhm.
And that is what I brought home to my local NAMI to put in place at the psychiatric center. And so, yeah, they are very, very informational, powerful, yeah, conferences. I have not been to one in Montana, so this year I will.
I'm biased, but I think our Montana ones are better than the national ones.
That's awesome.
Um, and like we have this year, the first speaker that agreed to come is Dr. Holly Wilcox, who and she is arguably, top three youth suicide prevention researcher in the country. And we get those people, and you usually don't. So
That's
because
awesome.
we pay speakers and they don't.
Oh.
So you absolutely get what you pay for in a lot of this. Um, so yeah, I'm just so grateful to everybody that's taking this on. All of the things that have kind of happened in the past years, like 988 has really put a lot of stress on us or off us. Like we are not designed to do crisis calls and have a really nice functioning crisis care system, because it is hard. Like I've hung up on the national suicide crisis line twice as I was trying to save somebody, and they were giving the most stupid advice in the world. So it's never perfect, but now that we have local people that we can use as a safety net, I think it's made like the family peer model much more functional because we don't have to be everybody for everything. Like it's just not fair for us to take all that on, but we can certainly rock our niche.
Other questions?
Andrew. Beth, this is your year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so for those, the Family Peer Support Certification went through legislation. And so, yeah, we'll be looking at certifying family peer supporters here. I don't want to say soon because we have to go through all the, um, you know, the requirements and the criteria and all of, the rulemaking. But yeah, it's definitely been a roller coaster and it's ended really well. So thank everybody for their support.
Well, thank you all so much for having me today. I've got a 1 o'clock meeting that I have to jump on and
Okay.
figure out what I'm supposed to tell them. So,
Colleen, you're
Well,
thank you.
thank you, Matt. We
Matt, thank you
appreciate
very
the
much. Colleen,
information.
thank you.
And yeah, we will see everybody next month for June's Family First Wednesday. And again, yeah, thanks for coming and sharing information with us, Matt.
Thank you all
Have a great
so
day,
much.
guys.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.